Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at one of the biggest PlayStation 5 updates we've seen in years. Sony has quietly rolled out a public beta, and inside it are some massive changes. Not just small fixes, not just background tweaks, but updates that change how we use the PS5, the DualSense controllers, and even hint at where PlayStation might be heading next. This isn't just about bug fixes. It's about the future of the PlayStation ecosystem. And once we go through all of this step by step, you'll see why people are saying this update is a game changer. So let's break it all down. DualSense multi-device pairing. Let's start with the controllers. The DualSense is already one of the best parts of the PS5. It has adaptive triggers, haptic feedback, and it feels like next-gen in your hands. But it had one major annoyance. Pairing. If you've owned a PS5 since launch, you know the pain. You connect your controller to your console. Then maybe you connect it to a PC to play Steam games, or to your phone for remote play. Every single time you had to repair it. And when you wanted to go back to your PS5, you had to do it all over again. It was clunky. It was slow. And it made no sense in 2025. That's finally gone. With this new update, the DualSense can now remember multiple devices. Not just one. Not just two. Up to 4. That means you can bounce between setups with almost no friction. Here's how it works. You turn off the controller. Hold the PlayStation button with one of the action buttons. Cross, circles, square, or triangle. Hold it for 5 seconds. The light flashes. That's the controller saving that device to a slot. Now your PS5 could be saved to cross. Your PC to triangle. Your phone to circle. Maybe even another PS5 in your house to square. Once you've set it, switching is instant. You just hold the combo and the controller jumps to that device. It sounds small, but it's huge, especially for players with multiple setups. One PS5 in the living room, a monitor in the bedroom, PC on your desk, maybe a phone for cloud gaming. Before, this was a nightmare. Now it's seamless. And it matters because Xbox controllers already had this. Microsoft's controllers have been praised for easy switching for years. Finally, Sony has caught up. And not just caught up. The way they've built this feels elegant. For streamers, for competitive players, or for anyone who uses one controller across multiple screens, this is a real quality of life leap. It makes the PS5 feel more modern. It shows that Sony is listening to feedback. And it makes the DualSense feel even more future-proof. Power Saver Mode, a hidden handheld teaser? The next big feature is more mysterious. Power Saver Mode. On the surface, it looks simple. It lets supported PS5 games run at a lower performance level. That means reduced power draw. Less energy. The console throttles itself when it doesn't need full power. And an icon shows up in your control center when it's on. At first glance, this is just an energy-saving feature. A nice little bonus. But let's think deeper. Why would Sony build this now? Why would they limit performance on a system that's all about power? The answer might be bigger than just saving electricity. A lot of people believe this is a test bed. A hint at a new PlayStation handheld. Think about it. A portable PS5-like device. Or a hybrid that runs PS5 games at reduced power to extend battery life. Power Saver Mode feels like the exact kind of feature you'd need to make that happen. And it's not a wild idea. Nintendo Switch does this every day. Docked, it runs at full speed. Handheld, it scales down. Steam Deck does it too. You can drop wattage to stretch out your battery. Why wouldn't Sony do the same? The timing makes it even more suspicious. For the past year, reports have been swirling about a PlayStation handheld revival. Maybe not a Vita 2, but something built to work alongside the PS5. Some say 2026. Some say sooner. If that's real, Power Saver Mode could be the first breadcrumb. So right now it's just a toggle. A little icon. But it could be the start of something much bigger. Something portable. Something fans have been asking for since the PSP days. Stability and UI improvements. Now let's move to the smaller changes. The stability fixes. The performance tweaks. The UI refinements. These don't sound flashy, but they matter more than you think. Early testers say menus feel faster. Transitions say smoother. Loading feels snappier. And that's exactly what you want from a console that's maturing. There are small usability updates too. Message layouts. Information displays. Bits of polish across the board. Nothing massive. But together they make the system feel sharper. And this is part of a long pattern. Sony has been steadily shaping the PS5 interface. Piece by piece. Discord integration. 1440p support. Game lists. Now controller pairing. Power saving. Each step adds more value. Each step makes the PS5 feel more complete. That's the thing about these updates. On paper they might look small. But in practice they shape how the console feels every day. Why this update matters. When you step back, this update looks different. It's not just fixes. It's not just polish. It's Sony setting the stage. DualSense pairing makes sense if they expect us to use more than one PlayStation device. Power saver mode makes sense if they're planning something portable. Stability and UI tweaks make sense if they're getting the ecosystem ready for its next phase. That's why this feels so important. It's not just for today. It's for tomorrow. And that's where we'll leave section 1. We've covered what's new. The controllers. The power settings. The stability. But in section 2 we'll go deeper. We'll ask the big questions. What does this mean for the future of PlayStation? Where is Sony going next? And what features are still missing that fans desperately want? Stay tuned because that's where things get really interesting. So we've gone through the new features. The controller pairing. The power saver mode. The smoother menus. That was section 1. But now let's step back. Let's ask the bigger question. Why is Sony doing this? What does it mean for the future of PlayStation? This is where things get exciting. The strategy behind the update. On the surface, this update fixes annoyances. But if you zoom out, you start to see a pattern. Sony isn't just making the PS5 better. They're preparing for what comes next. Think about the controller update. Multi-device pairing makes total sense if Sony expects us to own more than one PlayStation product. Maybe a console. Maybe a handheld. Maybe even a cloud streaming stick. Why else would they invest in this now, 4 years into the PS5's life? Then there's power saver mode. Again, it doesn't make sense if you only look at the PS5. Nobody buys a powerful console to intentionally slow it down. But if you think about a portable system, or even a hybrid design, suddenly it makes perfect sense. So when you put these pieces together, it feels like Sony is laying groundwork. Not just random updates, but small building blocks for a bigger ecosystem. Sony's ecosystem vision. And that brings us to the ecosystem. Sony doesn't just want one device in your house. They want many. Your PS5 in the living room. Your controller working across your PC and phone. Maybe a PlayStation handheld in your backpack. Maybe a streaming device in another room. And all of it connected by the same account, the same store, the same services. This isn't new in the industry. Look at Microsoft. They've been pushing Xbox Game Pass across console, PC, and cloud. Look at Nintendo. The Switch is a hybrid living in 2 spaces at once. Sony has been slower to expand, but this update shows they're thinking about it. And the timing is right. Cloud gaming is growing. Portable systems like Steam Deck and ROG Ally are proving there's demand. Fans are asking for a PSP revival. The stars are aligned. If Sony really does bring out a new handheld, these updates will be the glue. Multi-device pairing. Power scaling. Seamless UI. It all fits together. Features fans still want. Now let's talk about what's missing. Because while this update is strong, fans still have a wish list. First up, custom themes and wallpapers. The PS4 had them. People loved them. But the PS5 still doesn't. Right now the dashboard feels clean but also a little sterile. Fans want more personality. Next, folder organization. Sony added game lists, but people want more control. The ability to fully customize, sort, and group titles the way they like. Then there's quick resume. Xbox has this and it's brilliant. You can suspend multiple games and jump between them instantly. On PS5, you're limited. People want more flexibility. And of course, backward compatibility. The PS5 can play PS4 games natively, but what about PS3, PS2, and PS1? Right now. Most of those are locked behind cloud streaming or limited remasters. Fans want full support. Pop in an old disc. Download a classic. No restrictions. These are the features that keep showing up in forums, videos, and feedback threads. And if Sony wants to keep the community happy long-term, they'll need to listen.